This is A Best Practices, a 12-part series where I break down the 12 fundamental elements needed to become a top AE. This is part 7, ensuring prospects show up to meetings. Making sure that prospects really consistently show up to all of your meetings is so important for a number of reasons. First of all, being ghosted is never a good thing in sales. If you're getting ghosted, if meetings are getting pushed out, rescheduled, or potentially even cancelled, that's never going to help your deal. Secondly, sending really thoughtful nurtures in between calls demonstrates to your prospects that you've listened to them and ultimately ensures that they're prepared for the next upcoming meeting. And finally, sending thoughtful nurtures helps you bring clarity around the expected outcomes of upcoming meetings to ensure that you continue to drive the deal forward at each stage. The most important thing with these nurtures is to make sure that you're delivering value at every single stage. Something that's thoughtful, something that's tailored, something that's relevant, but ultimately something that's actually going to be valuable for the prospect. I aim to time my nurtures really strategically in between next steps to make sure that I'm maximizing the impact that the nurtures are going to have. And I'll aim to make sure that every single nurture is personalized and adds value with every interaction. So to make sure that the email nurtures are as valuable as possible, it's important to be as present and really take in as much information when you're on the call speaking with prospects. If somebody raises a particular question or has a particular area of interest, I'll make sure to make note of that in my notes, and I'll potentially write down just what they said, I'll quote them, or I might write down a piece of content that I know is going to be useful for them after the call. If you're struggling to think about what to nurture, it's a really useful exercise to watch your calls back on a call recording software like Gong. You will almost always pick up on something that you didn't notice first time around when you're on the call when you go through that exercise. Then when it comes to the nurture itself, I really try and keep the tone as friendly as possible, really lighthearted, really snappy, short, sweet, to the point, but ultimately not asking anything from them. So on the screen is a simple example of the type of nurture I might send somebody. In this case, the person I was speaking with was showing a little bit of uncertainty around how we could cater towards their specific use case. So what I was aiming to do here was use some social proof in the form of a bit of content to show how similar companies in a similar kind of team have achieved positive outcomes using my software. So I've included a hyperlink to the content, but to make life easy for people, I like to include screenshots that are there in the email. Chances are half the people aren't going to click through to the content at best. And so if you can drag something in that's right there in front of them in their eyes, that's just going to make it much more digestible for them. So I included a couple of screenshots and I said, hey, you can even see what their boards look like. So it's, visualizing how teams like you realize value in our software. Worth noting, the call to action is simply let me know if this sparks any questions. And then here's an example from my previous role when I used to use video a lot more. Because the company I'm at the moment creates loads of video content, I tend to just use that. But when you're in more of a startup environment, you do have to be a bit more creative. So as a result, I would always create personalized videos for all of my big deals. And it would just be something short, snappy. As you can see, I've made sure it's under 1 minute to make sure it's really easy for them to digest, and it's going to make it more likely for them to click on it. But it's something that's just visual, walking through a particular example, demonstrating a bit of personalization and personality. And I find this is a great way to create something that's shareable in their team, because often when you create these types of videos, you'll end up seeing them getting clicked on 10, 15, 20 or more times, suggesting that they've shared it around internally. So it's a really great way to kind of expose yourself wider across an account as well. And the final thing I think about with these nurtures is kind of timing them strategically between the next meeting. So what I'll aim for is for it to be either halfway between or just after halfway between my previous call with them and my next call with them. I find if you're sending the nurtures one day after, then you're still going to allow several days or maybe a week or so until you're next to be speaking with them. So in order to kind of maximize the period of time that you're staying top of mind, I just aim to have it around about halfway or slightly after halfway. So if I'm speaking with them on the Monday and then the next one's on the Friday, I'll probably nurture on a Wednesday. Or if it's a week until I'm speaking to them next, maybe it's Monday to Monday, I'll send the nurture perhaps on the Thursday. So just as a way to try and stay top of mind and just trying to influence those natural conversations that are going to be happening on their side, whether it's in the office or over a virtual tool like Slack or Teams. But that's something that I just try and think about as well to try and maximize the impact of these nurtures. So to summarize, make sure you're really paying attention to the things people are saying to you and use that as a way to ensure you've got valuable content, valuable ideas that you can send, and have a number of assets like content and case studies top of mind that you know are generally going to be helpful for the kinds of personas you're speaking to on a regular basis. Time the nurtures as strategically as possible as a way to try and stay top of mind with your prospects, and aim to keep the tone friendly, valuable, personalize it in every single interaction, and keep the call to action as minimal as possible, and don't ask anything from the prospects when you're sending these nurtures. A quick PS at the end of this video. The 12-part series that these short form videos is made of has been a long time work in progress. I've got all of the slides with all the content, with the information I share in these videos in decks, and I've also filmed a 4-hour video course I'm pretty confident that it would be really useful for account executives who are looking to improve and accelerate their target attainment and improve career progression. But I'm not 100% sure. I've only run it by one person. I got good feedback, but I'm keen to run this by a few more people. So if you'd be interested in seeing this course, learning about the format of it, or even potentially going through it, I'd be looking for a handful of select few people to run through it for free, of course, initially, in order to get some feedback as to whether it's even useful for people. So if that would be something you'd be interested in, please drop the word interested in the comments, and I'd love to connect with you and potentially discuss this course. So let me know. But yeah, thanks again. Feel free to connect me on LinkedIn if not. And yeah, next episode is on proposals and mutual launch plans.